Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video, I'm going to do the Spring is in the Air tag, which is a new original tag by Beyond Books wt5il and Uncommon Reader. And I was tagged by Daniela at Uncommon Reader, so thank you for that. I repeat what Daniela said about this tag. Welcome to Uncommon Reader. Here's something special to celebrate the new season. Spring is in the air, tag Spring is in the air, released on the calendar. Please enjoy the seasonal tag from Daniela at Uncommon Reader and Reney at Beyond Books. We look forward to warmer days ahead, as well as hearing your answers to the prompts. There are 8 prompts in this tag and a bonus one. The first prompt is Spring Chicks. Name a book that made you feel warm and fuzzy. Not too many of my books make me feel warm and fuzzy, but one I just completed would qualify. That is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This book is a romance that is both funny and also has a lot of heart, and I like the way it ended, and I think this qualifies for this prompt. I'm not saying too much because I reviewed it recently, and if you're interested, you could just look at that video. The second prompt is April Showers, a book that is set near or on the water, or has the word water in the title. I'm going to give 2 answers to this one a nonfiction, the other fiction. The first is The Underworld Journey to the Depths of the Ocean by Susan Casey. In this book, the author, early on in the book, gives the history of how deeper and deeper depths in the ocean were explored. And then, in more modern times, the continuing explorations, and she herself went down on some of the explorations, and she was also kind of, while writing about what the crews did, also kind of a crew member herself on some of these missions. And so a lot of the book was either on the ocean or below the ocean. The second book is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is a romance that was set in a Michigan town that is on Lake Michigan, so it was near one of the Great Lakes. The third prompt is Spring Break. Talk about a time you took a break from reading and why. I've never really consciously taken a break from reading, like made a decision I'm just not going to read. Starting in February 2022, when I first created an account on Storygraph and recorded my reading, I've read more than I ever have, and there hasn't been any breaks since then. But before then, my reading ebbed and flowed. A lot of it had to do with what else I was doing at that time. When I was younger, I used to watch a lot of sports on TV. Traditional sports, baseball, football, basketball, hockey. And I also used to watch a lot of TV shows. So at those times, I wouldn't have been reading as much. And I was working too, so I wouldn't have had as much time to read as I do now when I'm retired. I do remember, though, that after a period of time when I wasn't reading, when I did pick up a book and start reading again, and I did used to wonder why I let the time lapse and so much time between me reading, because every time I started again, I remembered how much I enjoyed it. The fourth prompt is Swallows, Homecoming, a book or an author you always go back to for comfort. There isn't really an author that I exactly go back to for comfort, but there are a few authors I've read multiple times, so I guess that's the closest that qualifies for me. I'm currently reading The Complete Tales of H.P. Lovecraft by H.P. Lovecraft. Many of those stories are the 4th time. As I've said in several videos recently, early on in this book, I wasn't getting the feeling I remember from reading Lovecraft stories, but the last several of the stories I have got that feeling. And couldn't really call Lovecraft comfort exactly, but the fact that I'm reading many of these stories for the 4th time, I guess, tells you something. And I guess also reading Dracula and War of the Worlds for the third time, that tells you what I think of those books too. Neither are really comfort reads, but the fact that I read them 3 times tells you something. The 5th prompt is Blooms, a book that started slowly but blossomed to be one of your favorite reads. It's a little too early to call this book one of my favorite reads because I only read it, I think it was fall last year. But it does qualify for the other part of this prompt, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Early on in this book, it was almost seeming like a comfort read. Just not really much was happening. But once it got going, it really got going, and then it got exciting. So that was a book that kind of, for me, started a little slowly, but once it got going, it really did get going. The 6th prompt is Eggs in a Basket. 3 books you want to read this spring. There's 2 books I always say that I really want to read, and I haven't got around to them yet, and there's no reason, except the book clubs and stuff that I do. But those 2 books are Bunny by Mona Awad and Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Again, no reason I haven't read them. I can read whatever I want, but I just haven't. But I am going to make... I'll say I will read them very soon, both of these books, because I've wanted to for a while. And I had to think a little more about the 3rd book, but for that book I'm picking The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This book I am going to read very soon because I'm currently most of the way through Mockingjay, which is the 3rd book in the Hunger Games series. This is a prequel to that. So I am going to read this very soon. And after this, I already have bought It Arrived, I haven't taken it out of the box, Sunrise on the Reaping, which is her 2nd prequel book, just came out. So this one I am going to read very soon. The 7th prompt is Green Pastures, a classic that never gets old. I'm going to repeat this from one of my answers to one of the earlier questions, but that would be War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The 3 times I read it were, widely separated, so there's a lot of stuff I didn't remember, but I really do quite enjoy that world. I really do quite enjoy the book, and despite the fact that it's a sci-fi book written in the late 1800s, and of course a lot of the technology isn't valid, but still, that book qualifies for this prompt. The 8th prompt is Pollen, a book or author you're allergic to. I wouldn't read The Stranger by Albert Camus again. That's another book similar to Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which I recently reviewed, and I said it was 3 stars, and it was kind of barely my level of acceptable reading. The Stranger also qualifies as that, kind of for a similar reason. I just didn't like the protagonist and some of the things he did, and that's kind of, in most cases, a real problem for me. I wouldn't call Camus an author I'm allergic to. I really have no desire to read anything more of his. Which probably doesn't make sense off one book, but it's just, I don't have any interest at this time. Not sure I ever will. And I also wouldn't read From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne again. This book is basically boring. Not only is it boring, but there's no payoff. The ending was very disappointing. Now I would read Verne again, although I've read several of his books recently, and I'm kind of moving away from classics a lot, but I have nothing against Verne. I enjoyed him as a kid, and if I was moved to, I would read more of his books again. The bonus prompt is Equinox. Find 2 books on your shelf that have the exact same number of pages and talk briefly about them. I started looking at books on my shelves, and I was going to just say 2 that are close. I wasn't going to try to get some that are exact same pages, but I looked at Storygraph, and it showed I had a couple of books. They were both 208 pages. Storygraph isn't always 100% accurate, but it showed 208, so I'm going with these 2 books. The 2 books are Annihilation, the Southern Reach Trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer, and the Nancy Drew Dyer's Captain Stone's Revenge by Carolyn Keene. Annihilation, the Southern Ranch Trilogy is a very interesting sci-fi, I suppose you could kind of call it horror book too. There's a region in the south of the U.S. that is kind of, it's sort of like, I suppose you could say, I don't know, maybe like a force field or something around it. People can get in, and a bunch of missions have been sent in there. In most cases, the people don't return. When they do return, they're changed, and they usually don't survive, if any of them survive. And this book is about another mission that's sent in there. Quite interesting book, and I really should read more in this series because I really enjoy it. And the Nancy Drew Diaries, Captain Stone's Revenge by Carolyn Keene. That's one of many in the recent Nancy Drew series, Nancy Drew Diaries. Don't remember too much about it, but there's a Captain Stone, which is, I don't know if he was a pirate exactly, but there was a buried treasure involved. So it was somewhere in New England that Nancy, Bess, and George went. So I do enjoy those books. Actually, as I think about it, I think the Nancy Drew Diary books, even though I don't reread them, they're kind of comfort reads for me because there's something I can go back to every so often. They're fairly short. Despite its Storygraph saying it's 208 pages, it's probably a really big font because when I read them, they're a little over 100. So those kind of qualify as a series for the earlier prompt, which was number 4, Swallows. Book you go back to for comfort. It's not a book, but it's a series. I've read maybe about 25 of those books. Next, it says, tag others to spread some spring joy. I was just putting the names in the description. I'm still going to do that. They're screen names. But I'm kind of going to take something from Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook. And when she tags people, what she says is she says their first names. So I'm going to do that here. And the screen name will be in the description for the video. Before I do that too, I'm tagging anybody who watches this video if you like to do that. Any or all of the prompts in this tag. This one just came out yesterday, by the way. I watched both Daniela's and Reney's videos. I'll put them in the description also, both their videos. Just decided to hop on this one fairly quickly. Normally I do them in order. But I'm also tagging Pat, Kelly, Nigel, John, Nix, Smitty, Kayla V, Nicole, Justin, Melena, Fred, Flossie, Maeve, Cliff, Jen, Suey, Philip, Gavin, Nick, Heather, Kevin, and Emily. Again, just if you want to do this one. But it's another one that gives you good food for thought. And we're well, most of us, unless you're maybe a skier or you like snowmobiling or something like that, you're probably glad that it's officially spring now. I hope you're having a wonderful reading week. I hope you're having a wonderful week in general. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos.